Hello, my most amazing artists. Today we're starting a project about perspective, a bird's eye view. This bird has a really unique perspective of the city. He can see everything from above. A bird's eye view is an elevated view of an object from above, with the perspective as though the observer were a bird, often used in making blueprints, floor plans, and maps. It can be an aerial photograph, but also a drawing. Check out this painting by Vincent van Gogh. He painted this painting from the perspective of a bird flying over these fields. You can see in the details that he used the elements of art space to create this perspective. This is a painting by a Mexican artist who wanted to show a perspective from a bird's eye view of a boat going to the market. We can see the uniqueness of this painting and how the boat is packed with fruit headed towards the market. Look familiar? Here's a bird's eye view of our city of Annapolis. Another beautiful street, and the beautiful colors we can see. Maybe a bird is flying down the street. Here's a bird's eye view of the Chesapeake Bay. Or maybe it's an outer space view. I don't know. Our inspiration today comes from this familiar book, the Jesus Storybook Bible, by Sally Lloyd Jones. The illustrator, his name is Jago. I'm not sure why he doesn't have a last name, but that's just how it is. Jago had a lot of interesting perspectives in his illustrations to make it much more interesting. Here's the Battle of Jericho. You can see that it's definitely from a bird's eye view. He shows Zacchaeus from a bird's eye view in the tree. These shepherds are hanging out at night. Little do they know, some angels will appear soon. Jago had a ton of creative ideas about his illustrations. But don't just take my word for it. Here's what he has to say about it.
There were 180 illustrations, I think. And the whole process from when I received the first information from the designer to when the completed book was delivered took me more than 12 months. And that was 12 months of pretty solid work. I think the style was simply the way I was working at the time, really. So I developed a technique whereby I was drawing in pencil, scanning the pencil drawings into the computer, printing them out again very faintly as a kind of guide, and then drawing the illustrations in ink. Those ink illustrations would then be scanned back into the computer, where I would add the colour and the textures. From working on that Bible, it kind of showed me what I was capable of, in the sense that when I started working on that, I was relatively new as an illustrator. I'd worked on a few books, but they'd been relatively small projects. And when I was offered the chance of working on it, I did kind of wonder, can I actually do this? This is such a huge amount of work. And I think the fact that I did it and it was successful kind of really sort of showed me that yes, I could do a project like that. I can complete 180 illustrations whilst moving house and having a child. And if I can do that, then I can do anything. I think one of the most challenging illustrations in the Bible was the Tower of Babel, which, if you think about it, in my illustrations, it's a tower that decreases in size as it goes upwards. But my brief for the illustration was that the view should be looking down on a tower. And so I was trying to kind of work out how a tower that gets smaller as it goes up would look if you were looking down on it from above, where the bit that is smallest is closest to you. And that proved very tricky. And in the end, I kind of cheated. I built a 3D model of a tower made of cylinders getting smaller and on the computer, and positioned a camera above it and figured out what it looked like. And I was quite pleased with myself after that, because that was kind of a really tricky sort of problem and I'd found a solution to it. I hope that people remember the illustrations, because when I think back to when I was a child, I have really vivid memories of illustrations from books, and they obviously really kind of seeped into my subconscious, and so I guess I hope that that years from now children will kind of have fond memories of the illustrations in the books that I've done.
Pretty interesting and inspiring stuff. Here's our inspiration. We're going to be following along this picture to illustrate the Christmas story, Jesus' birth in the stable. We'll be using the elements of art, space, to show a unique bird's eye view perspective. We're going to add the element of art, value, to create colors that create light and shadows. Finally, another important element of art in this project is texture. We want to show the animals in the stable, hay. We use texture to show those things. Let's get in the Christmas spirit by getting some context for this story. Check it out.
Zonderkids presents the Jesus Storybook Bible. Every story whispers his name. Written by Sally Lloyd-Jones and read by David Suchet. He's here. Everything was ready. The moment God had been waiting for was here at last. God was coming to help his people just as he promised in the beginning. But how would he come? What would he be like? What would he do? Mountains would have bowed down, seas would have roared, trees would have clapped their hands. But the earth held its breath. As silent as snow falling, he came in, and when no one was looking, in the darkness, he came. There was a young girl who was engaged to a man named Joseph. Joseph was the great-great-great-great-great-grandson of King David. One morning, this girl was minding her own business when suddenly a great warrior of light appeared. Right there, in her bedroom. He was Gabriel, and he was an angel, a special messenger from heaven. When she saw the tall, shining man standing there, Mary was frightened. "You don't need to be scared," Gabriel said. "God is very happy with you." Mary looked around to see if perhaps he was talking to someone else. "Mary," Gabriel said, and he laughed with such gladness that Mary's eyes filled with sudden tears. "Mary, you're going to have a baby, a little boy. You will call him Jesus. He is God's own son. He's the one. He's the rescuer. The God who flung planets into space and kept them whirling around and around. The God who made the universe with just a word. The one who could do anything at all, was making himself small and coming down as a baby." Wait, God was sending a baby to rescue the world? "But it's too wonderful," Mary said, and felt her heart beating hard. "How can it be true?" Is anything too wonderful for God? Gabriel asked. So Mary trusted God more than what her eyes could see, and she believed. I'm God's servant, she said. Whatever God says, I will do. Sure enough, it was just as the angel had said. 9 months later, Mary was almost ready to have her baby. Now, Mary and Joseph had to take a trip to Bethlehem, the town King David was from. But when they reached the little town, they found every room was full. Every bed was taken. Go away, the innkeepers told them. There isn't any place for you. Where would they stay? Soon Mary's baby would come. They couldn't find anywhere except an old, tumbled-down stable. So they stayed where the cows and the donkeys and the horses stayed. And there, in the stable, amongst the chickens and the donkeys and the cows, in the quiet of the night, God gave the world his wonderful gift. The baby that would change the world was born. His baby son. Mary and Joseph wrapped him up to keep him warm. They made a soft bed of straw and used the animal's feeding trough as his cradle. And they gazed in wonder at God's great gift, wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger. Mary and Joseph named him Jesus, Emmanuel, which means God has come to live with us, because, of course, he had.
Hope that puts you in the Christmas spirit. Here's some examples from kids, just like you. Well, there we have it. Let's get started.